The cold edge of the sheet against your shin at 3 in the morning. That strange, full pressure in the bladder. That thick, dull feeling in your calves. A lot of the time, the hidden cause is lower than you think. It starts in a neglected pump down in the calf, a quiet piece of anatomy most people never notice until the night keeps breaking around it. So before I explain a single thing, do this with me now. Sit at the edge of your bed or on a chair with both feet flat on the floor. Let your hands rest on your thighs. Loosen your jaw. Drop your shoulders. Now feel one calf with your fingertips for a second, just enough to notice whether it feels tight, dense, or a little puffy by the end of the day. Then leave it alone. Start the ankle pump. Pull both toes slowly toward your shins, then press them gently away. That's 1. Again. Slow enough that you could almost miss the movement if you weren't paying attention. Breathe in as the toes come up. Breathe out as they move away. Don't force the range. Don't turn it into exercise. Give me 10 like that. Smooth, quiet, easy. Now keep going, but change one thing. On the next exhale, empty the breath a little more fully and let the feet pause for a beat before the next inhale arrives. Then continue. If you feel warmth creeping into the arches of the feet or a faint softening behind the knees, pay attention. That matters. Now lean back against the headboard or lie down with your knees slightly bent, whatever feels easier on your back, and keep the same rhythm for another slow round. This is where the calf muscle second heart, the soleus venous lymphatic pump, a nightly ankle pump routine that clears pooled lower body fluid to end 3 a.m. waking and heavy stiff legs, starts to show you what it's been missing. The calf, especially the soleus muscle, is built to help move fluid upward all day. When it goes quiet for too many hours, your lower legs can begin holding on to more than they should. And that is the part most people never connect. They blame sleep, they blame age, they blame the bladder. Meanwhile, the body has been trying to clear a traffic jam from the ankles upward. If this kind of body-first sleep work helps you, subscribe and keep this close for tonight. Because in the next step, I'm going to show you why lying down can suddenly turn that pooled fluid into a 3 a.m. wake-up, even when your bladder was never the real problem to begin with. So stay with that feeling in your calves for a moment. Maybe they already seem a little warmer. Maybe the skin around the ankles feels less tight, like your socks would leave a lighter mark if you stood up right now. That small change is where the night starts to turn. Here's the missing link. During the day, gravity keeps pulling blood and tissue fluid downward. If you sit a lot, stand a lot without much walking, or simply have older vein valves that do not snap shut as sharply as they used to, more of that fluid lingers in the lower legs by evening. You feel it as heaviness, as that stuffed sensation in the calves, sometimes as a restless need to move your feet under the blanket. And lymph has its own problem. It has no central pump. It depends on muscle contraction and breathing. Quiet legs mean quiet clearing. Now lie back fully if you haven't already. Put a pillow under your knees or slide your calves up onto a cushion so the backs of the legs feel supported. Let the toes point to the ceiling. Start the ankle pump again, but even smaller this time. Draw the feet up slowly on the inhale. Ease them away on the exhale. 10 slow repetitions. Then rest for 1 breath. Then another 10. Feel how the calf firms for a second, then melts. What that motion helps with is venous return. The soleus muscle wraps deep and low in the calf, and every calm squeeze helps press blood upward through the deeper veins. That is why some people call it the second heart. Not because it replaces the real one, of course, because it assists the uphill work from the floor of the body. When that help goes missing all day, the backlog waits for you. And then bedtime changes the geometry. The instant you lie flat, the fluid that pooled in the lower legs gets an easier path back into circulation. Your body now has more of it to sort through. The kidneys notice. Urine production rises. Hours later, you wake with pressure and think the bladder caused the whole thing, when sometimes it is only handling what the calves failed to move sooner. That is why you can stand there half asleep under the dim bathroom light and wonder why the urge felt so much bigger than the result. Keep the motion going for 5 more breaths. Slow, quiet. It is about clearing them before sleep asks the rest of the body to deal with the overflow. And once you see that chain, another symptom starts making sense too. The morning stiffness that seems to come from nowhere. And that stiffness in the morning has its own fingerprint. More often, it is that first stand beside the bed, the ankles feeling wooden, the calves thick, the first few steps short and careful while the body catches up. You tell yourself you just need to get moving. But what you are often feeling is a lower leg that went into the night loaded and came out of it only partly cleared. Stay where you are and add one more piece. Let both heels press gently forward, as if you were trying to make your legs a fraction longer without locking the knees. Hold that soft calf squeeze for a slow count of 2. Then release completely. Wait 1 breath. Do it again. This is a different signal from the foot motion. The ankle pump creates rhythm. This little heel press gives the calf a fuller squeeze, then a fuller let go. Both matter. Now notice the texture of the legs. The skin over the shin may feel less tight. The back of the calf may seem less crowded, less swollen from the inside. For some people, the change is subtle, just a sense that the legs are no longer asking for attention every few seconds. For others, it is obvious. The feet warm. The blanket stops feeling irritating around the ankles. The urge to shift, rub, or cross one leg over the other eases off. That restless feeling at night is where a lot of people get confused. They think the answer has to be more effort, a long walk late, fast calf raises, harder stretching, even pacing the room. And sometimes movement does help for a moment, because the calf is finally being asked to do its job. But close to bedtime, if you push too hard, you wake the whole system up. Heart rate climbs, breath gets shallow, and now the legs may be looser while the brain is more alert. That is the wrong trade. This is why the slow version works differently. The soleus muscle responds to steady, repeated contractions without demanding a full workout. You get the clearing effect without turning the night into training. Calm motion, quiet breath, gradual venous return. That combination is what makes this useful when the room is dark and you actually want to sleep after you finish. Do 5 more heel presses, then stop completely. Let the feet fall where they want. Rest for 2 easy breaths and listen to the legs. If the calves feel heavier against the bed in a good way, if they have that softened, settled weight, you are right on the edge of the next question. Because before this becomes a habit, you need to know when a heavy leg is just pooled fluid, and when your body is asking you not to guess. That is the line where you stop treating every symptom like a puzzle you have to solve alone. Most heavy calves at night are just that familiar backlog we've been talking about. But there are moments when the body is not asking for a bedtime routine. It is asking for proper attention. So use common sense here. If one calf suddenly swells more than the other, if it feels hot, sharply tender, or looks different in a way that showed up fast, do not sit there pumping and hoping. If the leg symptoms come with chest pressure, unusual breathlessness, or a sense that something is way off, that is not your cue to troubleshoot on the mattress. The same goes for numbness that is new, obvious weakness, or swelling that keeps climbing no matter what you do. That is clean adult diagnostics. There is another layer too. If you are waking to urinate far more than usual and it is a new pattern, get it checked. If the urge comes with burning, blood, fever, or pelvic pain, that needs real evaluation. If you snore hard, wake with a dry mouth, or feel wrung out all day, sleep apnea may be in the room with you. And if blood sugar has been drifting, the night can get noisy, for reasons this routine will not fix. The body can stack problems. You do not win by pretending everything belongs to one cause. Once the serious stuff is ruled out, then this protocol becomes powerful in the right way. Then you know you are not ignoring a warning. You are supporting a system that still needs mechanical help. That matters because a lot of people either do the opposite and panic over every symptom, or they wave everything off and miss the bigger issue. Neither one serves you. So if the picture is stable, familiar, and especially tied to long sitting, evening heaviness, or that loaded feeling at lights out, return to the calf. Bend your knees again. Rest the heels down. Do 6 slow ankle pumps with the breath. Then stop and simply notice. This is where you begin separating danger from congestion and confusion from pattern. You may also notice something else now that the room is quiet enough to hear it. The legs do not only get heavy. Sometimes they get strangely busy, a little electric, a little twitchy under the blanket, a need to flex the foot, drag the heel, shift the covers, uncross and recross. People call it restlessness and leave it there. But when that feeling rises out of a calf that has been under-moving all day, it tells a very different story. And that story starts with a muscle almost nobody thinks about until bedtime turns into negotiation. That twitchy feeling is where the lower leg starts talking in a different voice. Sometimes it is a low buzz in the calves, a faint pulling in the ankles, a need to flex the feet again and again because stillness suddenly feels wrong. You slide one heel against the sheet, then the other. You turn to one side, then your back. Then you kick the blanket loose for a minute because the fabric itself feels irritating. Go back to the same position, knees bent a little, heels resting. This time, make the movement even smaller. Draw the toes toward you halfway. Ease them away halfway. Keep your mouth closed. Breathe in through the nose for one slow pump. Breathe out for the next. Then pause with the feet quiet for a breath and listen. It is signal. You are giving the calf a job that matches bedtime instead of fighting bedtime. A lot of restless lower leg sensation shows up after long hours of underuse. The muscles have been idle, the fluid has been lingering, and the tissues get that crowded, unsettled feeling. Then the lights go out and your awareness gets sharper. Suddenly, every little pulse in the calf seems bigger. Every trapped sensation wants an answer. That is why people rub the legs, thump the mattress with the heel, or march to the bathroom and back even when they are exhausted. The body is asking for motion because motion is one of the few things that clears what has been collecting there. The trick is choosing the right amount. Too little and the legs keep bargaining with you. Too much and you wake yourself right out of the lane where sleep was possible. That is why this slow ankle pump works so well. The soleus muscle does not need drama. It responds to steady repetition. The calf firms, releases, and with each quiet cycle, you improve venous return without turning the whole evening into a workout. Now add a tiny exhale hold. After the next breath out, stay empty for a brief moment. Just a calm pause. No strain in the throat, no squeezing the face. Then let the next inhale come naturally and continue the motion. For some people, this is the moment the buzzing fades. For others, it is the first time the feet stop feeling trapped inside their own skin. And when that happens, something important becomes clear. The urge to move the legs was not always random. Sometimes it was a mechanical request from a calf that had been ignored all day. Which raises the next question. If this is a pattern, how fast should you expect the night to change? That change usually shows up in a quieter way than people expect. You do not go from a rough night to some perfect movie version of sleep by tomorrow. What often happens first is smaller, but if you know what to look for, you will catch it. Tonight, after you finish this round, pay attention to the first 10 minutes in bed. Are your feet still asking to move, or do they settle sooner? When you wake, if you wake, does the urge feel as sharp as usual? And in the morning, when your heels touch the floor, do the calves feel a little less packed? Those are the early signs. The body tends to whisper before it announces anything. Stay down and do one short set exactly as you are now. 6 easy ankle pumps with the breath. Then 3 of those gentle heel presses. Then rest. Feel the mattress under the calves. Feel whether the back of the lower leg spreads a little wider into the bed. That settling matters. It tells you the tissues are starting to let go of some of the load they carried into the night. For a lot of people, the first improvement is, I went back to sleep faster, or the leg stopped bargaining with me, or that false bladder drama lost some of its force. By the 3rd night, a common shift is timing. The wake-up moves later, or it comes softer without the same jolt of urgency. By the end of a week, if the pattern really is tied to pooled lower body fluid, the heaviness at lights out often eases before anything else. That is why consistency matters more than intensity. The calf responds well to repeated calm work. You are reminding it of a job, not punishing it for falling behind. A hard session one night and nothing for 4 days does less than a few patient minutes each evening. This is especially true if your days are full of sitting, driving, desk time, or long stretches where the lower legs stay quiet. And there is one more useful clue. If the routine is helping, you may notice the socks leave less of a groove by evening, or the skin around the ankles feels less tight when you peel them off. Tiny things, ordinary things, but they are often the first physical proof that the backlog is changing before the sleep fully catches up. Which also means there are ways to ruin the effect without realizing it. And most people make the same mistake the moment they try to improve the routine. That mistake is speed. The moment people feel a little benefit, they start snapping the feet back and forth like they are trying to finish a set. Toes yank upward, ankles whip down, shins tighten, breath gets choppy, and the whole thing turns from a quiet clearing practice into effort. You can hear it in the room. The mattress rustles more, the jaw sets, the shoulders creep up. The calves are moving, sure, but the rest of the body is waking with them. So slow it down on purpose. Cut the range in half if you need to. Let the toes come toward you only as far as the front of the ankle stays easy. Then let them drift away. If the fronts of the shins start to burn, you are over-pulling. If your toes curl hard, you are gripping instead of pumping. If your thighs are joining in, you have gone too big. The calf should do the quiet work, and then let go. That release is part of the effect. Try this now. 1 hand on the lower ribs, 1 hand on a calf. Inhale and let the ribs widen a little under your palm. As you exhale, do 1 slow ankle pump. Feel the muscle under your other hand gather, then soften. Wait a beat. Again. When the breath leads, the movement stays in the right lane. When the feet lead and the breath chases after them, most people rush. There is a second mistake too, and it hides behind good intentions. People keep adding things, harder stretches, extra reps, long calf raises in the hallway, deep massage right before bed. They think more input means more relief, but the lower leg is already telling you it has been crowded, full, and irritated. Piling on sensation can make it louder. What helps at night is a clean signal the body can use. Gentle squeeze, release. Quiet breath. Space for fluid to move. This is where the soleus muscle earns its reputation as the second heart. It does not need theatrics. It needs repetition. A few unhurried contractions can help venous return more effectively before sleep than a burst of restless effort that leaves you warmer, sharper, and more awake than when you started. So check yourself honestly. Are your feet moving smoothly, or are they fidgeting? Is your face soft, or are you working? Are the calves settling, or are the shins complaining? Because once the form is right, the next question is not how hard to do it, It is when to do it. And timing changes everything. Timing matters because the lower leg behaves differently at dinner, at bedtime, and at 3 in the morning. The same motion can help in all 3 places, but the reason you use it changes depending on when the heaviness shows up. If your calves get that dense, sock-marked feeling by late afternoon, do a short round before the evening really starts. Sit in a chair with both heels planted. Give yourself 1 quiet minute of ankle pumps while dinner cooks, while the kettle warms, while the house is settling down. Nothing dramatic. You are interrupting the backlog before it hardens into the night. For a lot of people, that early round takes the edge off the loaded feeling before they ever reach the bedroom. Then use the slower, more deliberate version as the bedtime round. Same idea, softer pace. Let the room be dim. Let the jaw unclench. Let the breath come through the nose. This is where you ask the calf to empty a little more fully without making the rest of you alert. A daytime version can be practical. A nighttime version has to be quiet enough that sleep still wants you afterward. And if you wake in the dark with that familiar pressure and those familiar legs, do not leap up immediately unless you truly need to. Stay still for a few breaths and notice what you are feeling. Is it a hard bladder signal? Or is it the whole lower body feeling busy and full again? Sometimes a very short set right there in bed, tiny motion under the blanket, is enough to take the edge off the urge and let you sort out what is actually happening. This is especially useful when the wake-up feels oversized compared with what happens once you stand. There is another timing piece people miss. Right after a long car ride, a movie, a long stretch at a desk, or an evening on the couch, the calves are often at their quietest. That is prime time for the first round. The soleus muscle has been underused, the fluid has had hours to linger, and the legs are arriving at bedtime already behind. Those are the nights when the body tends to cash the bill after midnight. So think of it this way. 1 small round can unload the day. 1 slower round can prepare the night. And 1 tiny emergency version can help you read a wake-up more clearly when it happens. But there is still 1 missing piece, and it is the part people skip because it seems too ordinary to matter. How to tell in the first minute whether the routine is actually working or whether you are just moving your feet. You can tell in the body faster than you think. The signs are usually small, physical, easy to miss if you are waiting for something dramatic. That is why I want you to check for the right things, not just ask, "Did I sleep perfectly?" Do 1 quiet round now and pay attention as if you were listening for a soft sound in the next room. First sign, warmth. Not heat from effort, not shin burn, not sweaty feet. A mild spreading warmth through the sole, the ankle, the back of the calf. Second sign, weight. The lower legs start to feel heavier against the bed, in a good way, as if they are finally landing instead of hovering in low-grade tension. Third sign, less internal crowding. The ankles feel less stuffed, the skin feels less tight. The urge to keep adjusting the feet eases off. There are also clear signs you are missing the mark. If the front of the lower leg starts complaining, you are pulling too hard with the shin muscles. If the toes cramp, you are gripping. If your breathing gets noisy or your chest starts doing the work, you sped past the simple version that helps at night. And if the legs feel more irritated after a round, stop adding effort and make everything smaller. Smaller range, slower pace, softer face. This is one of those cases where less gives you more. Now try a simple comparison. Hold both feet still for 1 breath and notice the calves. Then do 4 tiny ankle pumps with the breath and notice again. Can you feel even a slight change in pressure or tone? That is your proof. The body does not need a speech here. It gives you a sensation. Either the area softens a little or it does not. And if it does, that is the lane to stay in. The same goes for the wake-up itself. If you do a tiny round under the blanket and the bladder pressure changes shape, even a little, that tells you something. If the legs settle and your mind follows them down, that tells you something too. You are learning the difference between a body that needs clearing and a body that needs a different kind of help. This is where people start building trust in the routine, not because someone told them a theory, because they can feel the tissue change under their own skin. The calf stops feeling like a sealed compartment. The feet stop asking for constant negotiation. The lower body gets quieter, and that quiet has a texture. And once you can read those signals, you can start tailoring the routine to the kind of night you are actually having, which is where it becomes much more useful than a one-size-fits-all set of instructions. That tailoring starts with a simple question. What kind of night are you walking into? Because the same lower leg routine can be adjusted depending on whether the main problem is the false bladder wake, the heavy calves, or that twitchy under-the-blanket feeling that will not let you settle. If the biggest issue is heaviness by evening, start earlier and keep it practical. Sit upright, heels down, and do a short round before you even change for bed. Give the calves a clear signal while you are still in the ordinary part of the night, before the body is already negotiating with the mattress. In that version, the movement can be a little broader, still slow, still easy, but a touch more deliberate. You are unloading the day while there is still time for the tissues to respond. If the main problem is restlessness at lights out, shrink everything down. Lie back, dim the room, let the blanket rest lightly over the feet, and make the motion so small someone across the room would barely see it. This is where the ankle pump works best as a quiet conversation with the calf instead of a command. A tiny range, a soft exhale, and brief stillness between rounds. You are trying to lower the volume on it. If the wake-up is your problem, the routine changes again. Then it is prevention. A brief round after a long sitting stretch, then the calmer bedtime round later. That two-point timing works better for a lot of people than cramming all the attention into the last few minutes before sleep. By then, the lower legs may already be loaded, and the body has more catching up to do once you lie flat. There is also a personality piece to this, and it matters. Some people always do too much. They chase a result and overshoot it. Others do so little they never quite activate the calf at all. So find your lane. If the feet are moving and the lower leg stays blank, increase the range a little. If the shins start to complain or the body perks up, back off immediately. The right dose feels almost modest. This is also why one person notices warmth first, another notices the bladder signal softening, and another wakes up to easier first steps in the morning. The first benefit follows your weakest link. The calf is the common thread. The way the body thanks you for helping it can look different from one night to the next, and when you start seeing that pattern, another truth gets hard to ignore. The day has been training the night more than most people realize. Once you notice that pattern, your whole day starts to look different. The long drive home, the afternoon in the desk chair, the show you watched without getting up, the extra hour on the couch because your legs felt too tired to move. All of it has been training the calves to stay quiet, and then you expect them to suddenly handle the night perfectly. That is why this is bigger than a bedtime trick. You are restoring a job that modern life keeps interrupting. The lower leg was built for repeated little contractions across the day. Walking does it. Standing and shifting does some of it. But long stillness, especially day after day, teaches the system to pool first and sort it out later. Then later becomes 3 in the morning. You do not need to redesign your life to start changing that. You just need to notice the dead zones. After a meeting, after a drive, after a stretch on the recliner, plant both heels and do a brief set. Tiny movement. Quiet breath. Wake the soleus muscle up before the evening backlog grows teeth. That midday or early evening touchpoint often makes the bedtime round feel easier because you are not asking the lower leg to recover from 6 or 8 silent hours all at once. This matters even more as the years move on. The valves in the veins are not always as crisp as they were decades ago. The legs may hold on to fluid more easily by evening. Ankles get thicker. Calves get that dull, loaded feeling sooner. A lot of people read that as a sign to do less, move less, trust the chair more. But the chair is often part of why the night turns on them. It is better use of the pump you still have. And there is something encouraging in that, because it means some of the misery is mechanical. Part of it is a missing rhythm, and rhythm can be restored. A minute here, a minute there. Then the calmer round before bed. The whole thing starts to feel less like damage control and more like maintenance. If you do this consistently, another shift often happens before sleep fully improves. You stop dreading bedtime quite as much. The legs no longer feel like they are arriving at the mattress with a long list of complaints. There is a little less bargaining, a little less resentment. The body becomes easier to live in at the end of the day. And that emotional part matters more than people admit. Because the worst nights are not only about waking up, they are about feeling trapped inside a pattern you do not know how to change. That trapped feeling is what wears people down, the sense that your own body keeps setting the terms. You lie there, trying to be reasonable with it. One more position, one more trip to the bathroom, one more minute waiting for the legs to calm down. And after enough nights like that, bedtime starts feeling like a negotiation you expect to lose. This is where the little routine changes from a trick into leverage. You are no longer showing up empty-handed. You have something concrete to do with the exact part of the body that has been dragging the whole night off course. Heels down, slow feet, quiet breath. A minute after the couch. A calmer round before sleep. A tiny version if you wake. That sequence matters because it replaces helplessness with a pattern your body can learn. And bodies do learn patterns. The calves learn whether they are going to stay dormant for hours or be asked to clear on purpose. The nervous system learns whether bedtime means more struggle or a familiar downshift. Even the wake-up changes character when it stops being a total surprise. The room feels different when you know what to do inside it. The blankets stop feeling like part of the problem. The lower legs stop being a mystery and start acting like tissue you can work with. There is something else here too. A lot of people secretly think they need permission to trust a simple method. If it does not come from a machine, a prescription, or a complicated name, they assume it cannot matter much. But the body is full of ordinary mechanisms that only seem unimpressive until they stop doing their job. The calf pump is one of them. Small motion, big consequences. Long stillness, bigger consequences. So let that sink in for a second. Some part of the misery may have been mechanical all along. Mechanical. And once something is mechanical, it becomes trainable. That does not mean every case is simple. We already covered why diagnostics matter. It does mean your night may have more room for change than it felt like it did when you were pacing the bathroom in the dark. Tonight, when you finish, pay attention to your attitude as much as your symptoms. Do you feel a little less cornered by the night? A little less like a passenger in your own body? That shift often comes before the bigger sleep gains, and it matters because it keeps people consistent long enough to get them. And consistency is where the next real change starts to show up, not only in the wake-up, but in the first steps of the morning. Those first steps tell the truth. Before coffee, before the day starts arguing with your attention, the lower legs give you a clean report. When this routine is helping, the feet hit the floor and there is less bracing. Less of that thick, careful walk to the bathroom. Less stiffness in the ankles while the body warms up. It may be subtle at first, but it is real. That is because the night did not begin as congested. The calves had already done some of the clearing work before you went horizontal. The bladder had less late-arriving fluid to process all at once. The tissues in the lower legs spent fewer hours feeling crowded. By morning, the first movement is no longer undoing as much leftover backlog from the day before. So use the morning as feedback. Do not just ask whether you slept through. Ask how you stood up. Ask how the calves felt when your weight first landed. Ask whether the feet felt trapped inside stiffness, or whether they rolled forward more easily. These details matter because they show progress before the whole night becomes perfect. People miss that and quit too early. You can test it over a few evenings. On nights when you skip the routine after a long sitting day, notice the difference the next morning. On nights when you do the short early round and the slower bedtime one, notice whether the first steps are easier. The calf does not care about your theories. It responds to use. And your morning body is honest about whether that use happened. There is also a practical reason this first step change comes early. The lower leg is where a lot of the mechanical congestion lives, so the benefit can show up there before your sleep becomes dramatically deeper. That is encouraging because it gives you something to feel with your own body instead of waiting around for one flawless night to convince you. If you want, add one more tiny check when you wake. Before you stand, flex and point the feet twice under the blanket. Just twice. Then stand and notice the contrast. If the ankles feel less glued, if the calves accept weight more willingly, that tells you the same story from another angle. The pump still matters in the morning too. This is where confidence starts to replace guessing. You are no longer hoping the routine works. You are reading the signs. You know what improvement feels like under the skin, in the first trip down the hall, in the way the feet meet the floor. And once that confidence is there, the next step becomes simple. Reduce the routine to something so easy you can remember it half asleep, without needing this whole conversation in your head. That simpler version is what keeps this alive on real nights. When you are tired, when the room is dark, when you wake half annoyed and half foggy, you are not going to remember a complicated sequence. You need something small enough to carry in the body without thinking. So boil it down to this. Heels down, toes up slowly, toes away slowly. Quiet inhale, quiet exhale. Then stop and feel. If the calves soften, do a few more. If they settle fast, you are done. If you are already in bed, make the motion tiny. If you are sitting after a long stretch of stillness, make it a little broader. That is enough. The body understands repetition better than speeches. You can even use a 3-part memory for it. Wake the calves. Let them drain. Leave them alone. That first part is the motion. The second part is the slow breath riding with it. The third part is important too, because a lot of people keep fussing after the lower leg has already responded. They add more reps, more rubbing, more shifting under the blanket. Sometimes the best thing after a good round is to stop interfering and let the tissue stay quiet. Try it once, right now, in the shortest possible form. Sit or lie where you are. Give me 4 slow ankle pumps. Then rest for 1 breath. Then 2 gentle heel presses. Then stop. Notice whether the lower leg feels more settled, more spread out, less noisy under the skin. That is the whole point of reducing the method. It becomes easy to repeat, easy to trust, easy to use before the night gets away from you. And once it is this simple, you stop needing ideal conditions. You can do it on the side of the bed, in a chair after a drive, on the couch before you head upstairs, half awake at an ugly hour under the covers without turning on a light. The routine starts fitting your life instead of demanding a special performance from you. That is how habits actually stick, by being usable. The soleus muscle cares whether it gets the squeeze and release it has been missing. A little motion, done at the right time, can change the whole feel of the lower body heading into sleep. And when something is that simple, a strange thing happens. You stop asking whether you have time for it, and start noticing how expensive it is to skip it on the wrong kind of day. That cost shows up in familiar ways. You sit too long, ignore the calves, head to bed anyway, and the whole lower body arrives carrying the day with it. The socks leave deeper grooves. The ankles feel thicker when you peel them free. Under the blanket, the legs feel busier, heavier, less willing to disappear into sleep. Then the wake-up comes, and it feels like the night is charging interest on every hour of stillness you stacked before it. Once you see that pattern, skipping the routine stops feeling neutral. It becomes a choice with consequences you can actually feel, because it is keeping score in fluid, pressure, and tissue tone. The chair was part of the story. The drive was part of the story. The long evening of stillness was part of the story. And the calf was sitting there the whole time, waiting for a signal it never got. That is why this little practice has more weight than it looks like it should. You are closing a gap. You are giving the lower leg a chance to help with lymph and blood before bedtime turns it into unfinished business. When that gap stays open for days, the night usually gets louder. When you close it regularly, the night often gets less demanding. So if you know you have had one of those days, act accordingly. Do not wait until the symptoms are already fully formed. Catch them upstream. Sit down for a minute before bed and let the heels anchor. Slow toes up, slow toes away. Quiet breath. A short round. Then later, the smaller version in bed. You are respecting the kind of day you had, instead of pretending your lower legs will magically forgive it. This is where people start talking differently about their body. Less blame, less confusion, more pattern recognition. Ah, this was a long sitting day. This was a travel day. This was an evening where the calves never really woke back up. That change in language matters because it moves you out of helplessness and into response. The body is still the body, but now you have a lever, and a lever changes the emotional math of the night. Instead of going to bed hoping you get lucky, you go to bed having done something specific. Instead of waking and feeling ambushed, you recognize the shape of the problem. That recognition is a kind of relief all by itself. Because once you stop feeling ambushed, you are ready for the final simplification. The whole routine, start to finish, in one clean pass you can use tonight. That clean pass is what makes this usable when you are tired. No theory to remember, no perfect setup, just a sequence your lower legs can recognize. Start before bed, after the long sitting of the day is done. Sit on the edge of the bed or in a chair. Plant both heels. Let the toes lift slowly toward the shins, then drift away. Match the motion to a quiet breath for 6 slow reps. That is the wake-up round. It tells the calves the day is over, but their job is not. Then pause. Feel whether the ankles already seem less crowded. Next, lie back with the knees slightly bent, or rest the calves on a pillow if that feels better. Make the motion smaller now. 4 slow ankle pumps. Then 2 gentle heel presses. Just enough to feel the calf gather and release. Stop for 1 breath. If the legs feel softer, heavier in a settled way, leave them alone. If they still feel busy, do 1 more small round. Then stop again. You do not need to squeeze every last drop out of the routine. You need to give the lower leg a clear, calm signal and let it answer. And if you wake later, use the smallest version of all. Do not sit up in frustration right away. Keep your eyes closed if you can. Tiny motion under the blanket. Heels easy. Toes up, toes away. Just a few times with the breath. Then wait. If the pressure changes shape, if the calves lose that crowded hum, you have learned something important about that wake-up. You can still get up if you need to, but you are no longer going there blind. That is the full sequence. A short round after stillness, a softer round before sleep, a tiny round if the night interrupts you. Same body, same mechanism, different volume. The calf does not need novelty. It needs repetition in the right conditions. This is also where people finally stop overcomplicating it. They realize the answer was sitting lower, in tissue they had been ignoring. a small muscle, a simple motion, a better path upward before bed. That is enough to change the feel of a night. And once the sequence is this clear, one last thing matters more than anything else: what you should expect over the next few nights, so you do not quit just because the first win arrives smaller than you imagined. That first win is often quieter than people want it to be. You do the routine one night, then go looking for a complete miracle and miss the real shift because it arrived in a smaller package. So watch for the honest signs. The first stretch of sleep may feel deeper, even if you still wake once. The bladder signal may come with less panic behind it. The calves may stop demanding constant adjustment under the blanket. In the morning, the feet may meet the floor with less stiffness. Those are wins. They count. They tell you the lower leg is starting to stop sending the night to work with a backlog. By the third night, you may notice timing change before total disappearance. The wake-up moves later. Or you surface and go back down more easily. Or the restless sensation fades before you ever have to start negotiating with it. These are the kinds of changes that make people think, wait, something is different, even before they can explain exactly what. By the end of a week, the pattern usually tells the truth more clearly. If the issue has really been tied to pooled lower body fluid and a sleepy calf pump, you should see at least one of the three main complaints soften. Maybe the heavy leg feeling at lights out is lower. Maybe the 3 a.m. bathroom trip loses its false urgency. Maybe the first steps of the morning stop feeling like a rusty hinge. The point is that one of them usually does. And if nothing changes at all after a fair trial, that tells you something useful too. It may mean the main driver is elsewhere. That does not make the routine worthless. It means your body is giving you information, and you should listen. This is where responsible self-care and diagnostics meet. You test. You observe. You do not force a story onto the symptoms just because you wanted one answer. But if there is a shift, even a modest one, stay with it. The calves respond to repetition. The body trusts patterns it can predict. What begins as a minute of movement often becomes a very practical part of how you close the day. No fuss, no heroics, just less congestion going into sleep and less fallout coming out of it. That is the real promise here. Better odds, built honestly, night by night. A body that goes to bed less loaded often wakes less bothered. And once you feel that with your own legs, the whole thing stops being an idea and starts becoming yours. So now there is only one thing left to do. Bring the whole story back to you, your night, and the symptom that has been leading this dance all along. So bring it back to the body you are in tonight. If the pattern fits, you do not need to wait for the next appointment, the next perfect schedule, or the next burst of motivation. You already know where to start. A chair, the side of the bed, a dim room, heels planted, slow feet, quiet breath. Then the calves begin doing what they were built to do, long before the night had to clean up after them. And that is the real turn here. The wake-up is no longer some random betrayal. The heavy legs are no longer a vague punishment from age or a long day. The restlessness is no longer just a nuisance you grit your teeth through. Once you recognize the pattern, the lower body stops being an enemy and becomes readable. You can feel when it is loaded. You can feel when it starts to empty. You can feel when the night has less to wrestle with. That does not erase every cause. It does not replace a doctor. It does not wave away the warning signs we named. But when the serious things have been ruled out, this gives you something honest and useful. A way to change the condition your body goes to bed in. And that changes more than people think. Some nights the win will be simple. You fall asleep without the calves arguing. Some nights the bathroom wake loses its false alarm feel. Some mornings your feet touch the floor and the first steps are not a negotiation. That is how progress often looks in real life. Specific, tangible, a little less pressure, a little less stiffness, a little less noise. The calf does not ask for much. A few slow contractions, a little breath, some respect after a day of stillness. Give it that often enough, and the whole lower body starts arriving at bedtime in a different condition. The sheets feel cooler. The ankles feel quieter. The dark does not feel like a place where your body corners you anymore. A small thing shifts, and then another. The sock marks fade sooner. The hallway walk before dawn gets easier. The blanket stops catching your attention at the feet. By the time you notice it fully, the night is no longer dragging so much unfinished work behind it. For a moment, the room is still. Your heels are heavy. The calves are quiet. Nothing in you is bargaining. If this is the kind of body-first sleep work you want more of, stay close. And tell me this in the comments. Which one has been leading your nights lately? The 3 a.m. wake, the heavy stiff legs, or the restless calves?